drop a ball and no one's there to put it in, is it a mistake? No. You picked it up, you have possession. But in training, if that information isn't there, then we're going to get nitpicked and it's going to be wrong, right? So I think if we can alter our session design and also remind players, hey, my job is to challenge you. My job is to challenge you. You're going to make mistakes today. And that's okay. I expect that. It's so much easier. You're affording an opportunity for a goalkeeper to be like, wow, I grew today. I feel so much more comfortable with blah, blah, blah. Even if they didn't have a successful outcome, I am more aware of blah, blah, blah. And to me, when you're able to have progress, and this is like something that the Harvard Business Study has done over like the last 80 years about fulfillment and happiness, is that people aren't just fulfilled. People aren't fulfilled by just the end. It's about the progress that makes people feel fulfilled and keeps them inspired and motivated. It's been like this 80-year study, just like general pop. And people are more satisfied when they feel or they sense that they're making some progress. And so for me, like, we're creating something that is transferable to the game, and people feel like, wow, I have more attention around this, or I have more understanding of those principles. Even if it didn't come off successfully in the outcome, that progress keeps them motivated to continue to maybe take some space or try again. And mistakes really aren't that like earth shattering in games, and people can remain confident even if they make a mistake in the game because they've trained that way. In training, they've learned how to adapt and adjust and, deal with the mental side of the game.
Welcome to the Keeper Institute podcast. My name is like younger women start their process earlier, whether it be going to the showcases and emailing schools, than we've kind of found that young men do. And it could just all be timeline. But as this comes up, the big question is, am I good enough to play D1? Or I only want to go D1? And I think it's a question we get a lot. And Jill, I honestly think you probably get it the most because a lot of people come to you with like their list of schools. Can you just go on, like, why do you maybe think that that's like their first snap judgment?
Well, I think everyone has incredible aspirations for their career. And I also am a proponent of that, stretching yourself and having these goals and these dreams. However, Division I isn't for everybody. And I think we really have to check in with ourselves to understand why do we want to get to that point? Like, what's the hope? What is what's the driving force to say that you played Division I or to get to Division I? Because I don't think that Division I is necessarily always going to provide the best experience for certain people. And I think that there's no harm, or I think there's no shame in saying you play Division II or Division III. And we've seen those goalkeepers even get to the next level. So for me, a lot of goalkeepers would say, and I wouldn't say this, but a lot of goalkeepers would say that the youth team that they play on is a vehicle to get them to be into a successful program in college, right? And so I think a lot of people will say, well, the ends kind of justify the means. The end is I'm getting to this, college experience, or I'm getting to this college team, or to play, at Division I level because I sacrificed so much and I was on the best youth teams, and I took the harsh lashings, the tongue lashings, and I was in an environment that maybe wasn't that great, but that was the team that was going to get me to college. But then we also make poor decisions on which college teams we're going to go to just for a potential logo on our chest, or to say that you went and you were on this team necessarily. When I think if we dive deeper, that a lot of players that are listening to this podcast would say, I want to play 3 to 4 years of college. I want an enjoyable college experience. I want to be on a competitive team where I'm contributing on a weekly basis. So if you have that desire, it's not inherently bad. I just think that a lot of people make decisions that don't really set them up for the future just to say that they played Division I soccer.
100%. And I couldn't agree more. And it kind of brings me, we got 3 points because you know us and we love points. But point number 1, there is a right school and a right fit for everybody. And I think oftentimes we concede the right school, right fit for label or looks. I think that happens a lot. And like, I can tell you, myself included, there was probably a better fit for me but I got kind of caught up in the fact that like a school wanted to give me a scholarship. And don't get me wrong, financials are a really important part of your college decision because, especially in this economy, things are expensive.
Yeah.
You don't want to just like willy-nilly go somewhere. You have to make sure it is the right financial decision and fit. But at the end of the day, like you have to have a school that is the right fit for you. So do I jive with the coach? Do I jive with the players? Is the system and the style something that I see myself liking? If I grew up playing and my team wasn't a kick and run type team, like we didn't just send it and run through, we were more of possession oriented, I might have a hard time going to a school that is the exact opposite. So knowing these things and learning about these schools is super important, and not just from the outside looking in, but getting an opportunity to go in the inside and kind of get a good picture of what you're stepping into, because you want to have a fit that feels right for you. And I think oftentimes what happens is we set our sights on D1 only, and you might be limiting yourself to places that might be a really, really good suit for you.
Well, Tori, what are some of those things that if I went, quote, inside and under the hood that I would want to be looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one is like, for me, how does the team interact with itself? So I want to go, I want to catch a practice, I want to be on the sidelines, I want to see, is someone interacting with me, whether it be someone who's like not currently involved in the practice, whether they're injured or, maybe that day they're off, whatever the case may be. Two, what happens? What's communication look like between players? So whether there's a mistake or something good, or just general communication in the middle of an exercise or throughout like small sided play. And then another thing that I like to see is like, what does the coach's interventions look like? Like we'll tell recruits, hey, watch me coach them. Make sure that that's something that you would like see the way and when we give feedback, see the way that we pull everyone together in the beginning, see the way that we close it out at the end. Like, is there touch points? Is there encouragement? Is there, a general amount of feedback that you would like? Because I think a lot of times people are like, the more feedback, the better. It's not necessarily the case, right?
Right.
So I think when you go inside, you want to see what do the connections and the relationships look like. And then also, I don't know that every school does this, but like giving yourself like the opportunity to have like a one-on-one moment with just players, so you can ask questions freely that maybe you feel like you'd like their perspective on, not their perspective when they're under the guidance of like the staff. I think it gives parents and recruits a good opportunity to kind of see and hear different things that might not feel as like scripted,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think all really good points, because I think ultimately the more information that we have, the better decision, the more informed decision that we can make. And also, I think the problem becomes when someone has an expectation and the reality doesn't meet expectation. That is when typically frustration happens, right?
For sure.
I expected to be a starter and contribute, and because you said that you valued me and whatever, and then the reality is that you're not. And so then that's when frustration can creep in. So the more information we have, the more informed decisions that we can make.
Good. Which kind of leads me to point number 2, which is your priorities should be driving your process, not the name of the school, not the level of interest they have in you. Your priorities need to drive the process. Like, let's say you coach at Loyden University and you love me, you write me all the time. It's great. I feel so wanted. I feel like, you really would prefer me to be at your school, and that when I get there, maybe I'm a star. That's great. You do want to go to a school where like they want you, not that they're on the fence about you. They want you, right? But maybe you don't have my major. Maybe you're too far from home. I don't want to concede these things that are important to me just because there's a lot of love from you, or because you're the most prestigious university in the world, right? I have to make sure that those things that are important to me are going to be there. And if I'm not quite certain, I'm new to this process, or maybe I'm new to like an athletic endeavor in college, like that's nothing that's happened in my family before, I want to make sure I get clear on that prior. I think that's such a great place to start. And I know in the past, Maria has done like college recruiting workshops through TKI. And I think one of the most amazing things is that she gets those young goalkeepers to create a list of like, well, what's important to me? What's important to me right now? What might be important to me in the future? And a list of like, probably close to 100 schools that could provide that for you.
Right.
You do have to start big and then go small. You don't want to start with who just wants you or
Right.
the names you think might be big and cool to go to. Those schools
Right.
are great. Every school, anytime you get an opportunity to play for a college is impressive, in my opinion. But you want those priorities to drive your process because it's going to give you a really good idea of like, what does this fit look like for me besides just on the field?
Well, I also think like that makes it more important to have experiences with some of these schools before, where you might go to, let's just say you were at some kind of showcase in North Carolina. Great. You're going to go visit, Wake, you're going to see UNC, Duke. You could visit some of these schools and campuses because you don't necessarily know what you want until you maybe know what you don't want. Right.
Right.
Where that was something that was like eye-opening for me. It was like when I went to
All right, welcome back to another Gloves Off. I feel like the walls are coming in a little bit. Our headspace is getting a little smaller here. We've picked up yet another TKI goalkeeper here. Tori Corsaro joins us with Saskia, not Saskia.
Oh, he still said it.
I was like, both out. Enjoy Loyden returns as well. So we got 4 of the biggest minds here, or three of them. I'm just here to kind of facilitate a little bit. So, Tori, thank you for joining us. Tori, real quick, for people who maybe or have just joined in for Gloves Off, give us a quick intro with specific your connection with Jill and TKI. Where do you fit in with all this?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on this one. I was having a lot of FOMO about the last one. But so pretty much the way I fit in is I Kool-Aid man my way into Jill and Maria's lives at TKI. I decided that what I wanted was to play pro soccer, and I was like, oh, who better to ask to train me for years on end than, Jill and Maria. So I went to a youth camp as a 22-year-old woman, and I then told them that I would be moving my whole life to New Jersey, and they were like, you are? I was like, yep, I sure will be. And they were gracious enough to give me a job, and they trained me, and then I kind of fell in love with TKI and everything that it is to its core pretty much immediately. And when I was done playing, it was exactly where I wanted to be, exactly what I wanted to do with the people I want to do it with.
Wonderful. I feel like, Jill, we probably need to start seeing some rollover from all the publicity we're getting y'all with TKI. There's got to be
a kickback.
Yeah, just a little bit. We're not asking for all of it. Good to have you in, Tori. And so this episode is kind of on the heels of the first week with the NWSL opening up. And I feel like a lot of different, obviously, performances and levels and Saskia, who's tearing paper there? Easy. But we have a lot of storylines, and I guess I was certainly left with questions, but I think a lot of people from the goalkeeping side, also y'all's voices as well coming in from the broadcast. So a lot of things to talk about. I figured, Tori, why don't you kick us off on a question you've been kind of throwing around your head of trying to figure out or wondering of what the progression is. So today we're going to go through some questions that we all have been sitting on, but we don't know what the questions are going to be here. So this would be good to have some good discussion on where we see the league and where the goalkeepers are. So Tori, kick us off here. What's something you've had in your head as far as the goalkeeping side in the league?
Yeah, so I've been thinking a lot about shot prevention, and I know if you follow TKI that you're going to be shocked by that. But I'm really curious as to, what goalkeepers are going to be really successful in shot prevention, because I do think that is such an area of the game that is necessary to be good at in the NWSL. But also I think we've seen goalkeepers that are more aggressive when it comes to shot prevention succeed a lot in, taking different saves or just even preventing opportunities. And even if you think about this weekend, the goal scored on Jordan Silkowitz was a shot prevention moment. I think maybe there's some things she could have done better to help her save that. But then we look at, maybe Caitlin Sheridan, who also faced shot prevention moments, and she denied those chances. So I'm looking at like all the goalkeepers across the league, and what do you think it's going to take to make them successful in shot prevention? And also how important of a role is that going to play in their team's overall success this season?
Well, I agree with you with Sheridan. I thought Sheridan had a great game. I was at that game. Couple cocktails in, but I was at that game. So, hey, it was my day off. No, I thought, if you look at who I think's going from day one going to thrive if she keeps it up would be Sheridan. I was really impressed with some of the saves she came up, her positioning. There was the goal on Anderson. When you look at Angelina Anderson, you see the goal on Anderson where she didn't get across the goal. Like she didn't drop step properly and get across, if I'm remembering the right goal. Yeah. But then you look at how Sheridan repositioned herself off a similar thing when Thompson brought it down to the end line and then sent that 3-goal situation, sent it across. And you watch Sheridan's positioning and her footwork to get herself across. And it was a mom's greatest save type of save. It was great. Like she left her feet and everything, but I looked more at the difference in the two there and just the footwork and the ability to reposition themselves. And that's what it's going to take in this league, because the ball's moving so quick and everything that if you have slow feet, the shot prevention is going to struggle. And so it was 2 examples when I was looking at them, like how to do it, how not to do it. Anderson kind of got stuck. She didn't move. She didn't drop step properly back into her goal on her line and then get her footwork, crossover step, and get across. And when you put those side by side, you can see the difference there.
Yeah, I think there's a clear distinction in our league between goalkeepers who are competent in terms of shot prevention and those who are just reactionary goalkeepers. I don't think that there's one right or wrong way to interpret the position, just based on your skill set and based on your team strategy, right? So when you look at Alyssa Nair, not really that preventative because her team sits in a low block, gets as many numbers back behind the ball, make it compact, and just make it so difficult for teams to break you down. But then you look at Gotham, who is like the ultimate.
Was it difficult?
Yeah.
Wasn't that difficult to break down Chicago the other day?
Well, they try to make it difficult for teams to break through. But when you look at Gotham, they play in such a distinct way where they try to high press and counter press in their final third, and the space that they're vulnerable in is actually behind their center back. So it demands the goalkeeper to be a bit more preventative. Of course, in general, out of possession, my first principle I'm thinking is like prevent any opportunity that you can, react when you have to, when you must, right? And there's 4 ways to prevent shots. Your vertical positioning. So are you connected with the back line and are you in their sprinter stance and in a mentality? Number 2 is having a plethora of final actions outside of the box. So can you emergency slide tackle? Can you head? Can you clear? Can you touch pass pressure? And having some preventative measures inside the box, as well as your communication to limit opponents' opportunities. And if you can solve pressure and manipulate blocks, then you have the ability to retain possession, which means the opponent can't score. So 4 different ways to shot prevent, and each goalkeeper is going to have, strengths in some of those areas where others aren't so much strengths. But I think it's important for them to interpret it based on what their capabilities are and what their team strategy is.
Jill, I feel like I'm going to have to go through and take notes back from this, because I remember last time we talked, I was
once again.
Next day, I was in the session. I was like, okay, what did Jill say? Those are the things. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull up, and I apologize to any Nair fans out here, but I'm going to pull up the goals from the game. I think some of the moments that even weren't goals.
I think you made the same face I did.
Yeah.
Look, I'm going to put because this led into my question, but go ahead.
Well, I am curious. I'm very curious just from the group when we talk about shot prevention. I think some of those things you mentioned, Joe, are very obvious, like the plethora of actions. We can see that, but I think when it comes to communication and some of the preventative macro side of it, that's hard for us, I think, viewers to kind of see. So I guess I'm curious from y'all, what are some of those finer details when it comes to shot prevention that maybe we miss sometimes, or you're impressed to see that it's a very small thing, but goes a long ways. So I'm going to pull this up, and we can reference a goal, or we can just play it here. It doesn't matter. But just in general, since we think of shot prevention on things that people might be missing, what are some of those smaller details that you might, as a viewer, might be able to pick up?
You got it, Tor.
Yeah, but I
does.
think again, the question you're asking, it was, who said it? Was it Freya?
Played here, it doesn't matter. But just in general, since we think of shot prevention on things that people might be missing, what are some of those smaller details that you might, as a viewer, might be able to pick up?
You got it, Tor.
Yeah, but I think again, the question you're asking, it was, who said it? Was it Freya? I think or said it back when Angel City first started and stuff like that, and like there were just so many shots. One of the key things, one of the shot prevention qualities, is that communication, and it's to organize your chess pieces in front of you to make the shot, if the shot is coming off, to make it incredibly obvious, to make it, okay, I'm organizing you, I'm pushing you right, you're pushing the defender, the window to shoot at is so small, it makes my job easier as a goalkeeper. And when you have that lack of communication to close those distances, like that's a good example right there, turning your side, not getting close enough to the defender. Now you're leaving the space more of a space wide open. Some of these goals, though, more space for that attacker to shoot in. So when you're saying the things that maybe like the viewer doesn't see, it's those communication hits, that it's not reactionary, like you said, Jill, whatever comes and I just have to deal with. How do I manipulate the situation in front of me to make this so obvious that it makes my life easy, and it makes the save, in a sense, obvious for me?
Yeah, I believe that the finer details of communication happen in this league, especially in transition moments, because I forget what number, however many goals that we tracked last year that were from transition, but it's an absorbent amount. Upwards of 40% in the run of play happen in transition. Those are the moments that your team might be in, a vulnerable shape, and you have to get, organized to get your weak side fullback tucked in, or pressure on the ball, or just delay. You don't have to win, forcing it into a wide area, letting numbers get back. So organizing those chaotic transition moments become really important. But also you can, at different times, our whole job hinges on scanning, our entire job, whether it's in possession or out of possession, right? So there are different times within a match where the ball might be, in the middle third or in your defensive third, that you can just take a glance and quickly organize. You can just take a glance and remind your weak side fullback body shape, right? Like body shape as a weak side fullback is so important, so that you can see the runner, so that you can attack the ball. So just little different moments like that, I think, are going to be incredibly important. And I think for anybody listening who either says that their goalkeeper needs to be better at communication, or the goalkeeper themselves have been told, I need to be better at communication, you have to have patience with this, right? Because all communication stems upon game understanding. What am I looking for? And what's the most important things that I need to be looking for and say? And that comes with experience, and that comes with education. So if you're looking at a goalkeeper and you're telling them they need to be better at communication, your feedback needs to be way more descriptive, and you need to be behind them, helping them to see what that important information is and how to say it.
And I think communication is huge in this. Not all those goals are a shot prevention moment. Like Jill said, like the big principle is prevent when I can, react when I must, but you're not always going to get that chance to be preventative. So I think goal 5 and goal 7 were moments where potentially Nair could be preventative. But it's not always going to be the case. And if the decision is to set and react, then that might be the best decision to save it. I think some small nuances when we talk about preventing are, what is my starting position vertically? Jill did mention that, but I think that a lot of the goalkeepers that are successful in using their spread, their smother, coming out, putting on early pressure, are, mindful of their higher vertical positioning, staying connected to your back lines, maybe even limit opponents' want or look to go behind the back line because they see you there, or maybe they've tried it once and you've come out and you've cleared it. So, coming out and staying connected can help you prevent it, but also it can help you in the moments where maybe Barbara Banda does break through and comes in, and then, you're facing that. And obviously it's got its own nuances that are difficult too. Like, what forward are you playing against? Are they super crafty? Or are they super fast? Yeah. Are there options for them to pass around you? These are all things that goalkeepers are going to need to consider when attempting to be or trying to be preventative. And I think that those are, for me, like two of the smaller nuances that an audience might be able to try to pick up on if they're looking for it.
Yeah, I always kind of wonder, it's probably something that I overanalyze and think too much of, but I always think of those moments where a keeper makes a big save, and we've all seen it where the keeper's like left on the island after that save, like the keeper knows they just like, change the scoreline effectively, and no one like says anything to him. But those moments for me are kind of a red flag of like, oh, is the collaborative aspect there for them, or are they kind of on their own individual islands? Because Jill, you mentioned the game understanding when it comes to communication. I think you're absolutely right, but there is, not that you disagree with this, I don't think, but there is that social side as well. Like, are we able to collaborate? Are we able to work together? If it's you might actually
are you listening?
Yeah, are you listening? Right? Yeah, or like,
are you listening? I'm sorry, like, because a lot of times with my keeper, like, I'd be like, did you communicate? Like, what was your conversation? And it comes down to, I said, whether it was their body positioning or where to push, and the person, and they don't react either. So, a lot goes on the defense too here. Yeah, and like a lot of this, even with the Chicago, you have to look back and watching that game, there was some stuff that Nair can't do anything about. We could get super, super technical, but she was left to her own devices often. And, I'm more worried that Chicago's got a very high hill to climb right now, just organizationally and defensively. And part of that is, oh, poor Nair. You know what I mean? Because we saw it this weekend.
Yeah, that farewell tour really came and went pretty quick. Now she's
I know.
Yeah.
Who said? I think Merritt Messiah said it. Did you hear? She was just like, I would have put my 2 weeks notice in. I think that's what it was. I was like, oh man, you got to feel for her. I think rolling into my question though, because we're just kind of hitting on it, was seeing what do you guys think about some of the positioning or bad positioning that led to goals this weekend as well? Because I thought Silkowitz really struggled. I thought she was questioning her positioning during the game, that I was questioning her positioning. I thought she looked incredibly uncomfortable to me at times in the goal. And then I'll go even back to the goal. Look, it's Banda. It was a banger, but I think Nair's positioning was off. I think she was too far off her line from that. What are you looking at me like that for? Am I being that picky? I mean, look, it's Barbara Banda, but I think she was too far. Not that I'm saying she would get it, but I think, if she's a yard back, that's a 30-yard strike. Like, there was no reason to be, in my opinion, that far off your line. Banda wasn't going to slot it to anybody that you need to come and play the angle and stuff. So I think there were a couple goals this weekend where positionally the goalkeepers were very off, in my opinion.
I think
it's a big sigh out of Jill.
No, because I know that everyone probably gets tired of me saying it all goes back to the mental. But I think based on the way that we understand learning, there's three things that are interacting with each other for the goalkeeper to be able to see and act accordingly. So their capabilities, what's happening in the environment, and what task are they being asked to do. And sometimes we have to consider that the environment is affording different opportunities or impacting them in different ways, right? So the environment, Jordan Silkowitz's first NWSL match, nerves are high, never experienced that level of pressure before. I'm going to do things that are safe. And what's safe? What's our biggest safety blanket? Being stuck to the near post. That is our biggest safety blanket, because we know if we get beat there, then we look dumb, right? Typically, not always. I don't subscribe to that. You can't get scored on in the near post thing, but it is a safety blanket that a lot of goalkeepers just tend to gravitate right to, right? And it makes our job a lot harder, because it makes it easier for the attacker to pick their spot and make them more decisive. And also it makes it obviously a larger area for us to cover. So I don't necessarily think that's something that we would typically see from her, but I think we see it because of the anxiety and the dealing with pressure. And yeah, I'm excited to get into that, because that has more to do with my question.
Yeah. So, I mean, because that was it for me, like what I noticed, not consistently, but some of the goal, what it came back into my notes on goals was, because I'm negative Nancy. It was just it was positioning. But I agree with you with Jordan. It was her first game, had never, played in an NWSL game, and that has you have to take that into account. But then I look at like Katie Lunn, who was playing, I thought had a good position on the near post, and then just her again, her shot stopping, on her ability to parry that ball properly, going to another whole thing, but putting it right back onto the top of the six. And if you look at her positionally, I thought she was okay, but then her final action wasn't. And her final action was negative. And so then you're a negative trying to parry the ball, and parry ball drops to the top of the six, and you get, banged into the back of the net. So, but my consistent theme was positionally, I think it's the first game. I know. But,
well, I will say, I think it's a positive that Sokowitz has the, I guess, excuse of like, hey, first game. Whereas I think some of the stuff with Nair, it's like, it's not first game, like there's nothing like there to bail her out in that sense. Obviously, it's a different game. But I think the thing I usually go to on this sort of stuff is like, why are they in that position? And so again, Sokowitz has kind of like, well, he's going to be like a little bit nervy in the game, which makes sense. But some of it, going back to last week, Jill, I just think like, man, have y'all been training in like a 15 by 15 yard space for like the last 2 months? Like, is that like you haven't done any sort of spatial stuff at all? Like, I'm not saying that y'all need to go, practice, a long ball coming out and you're diving and heading it away for that 1 in a million. Like, you don't need to do everything. Like, you just can't cover that. But you should have been prepped for this moment a little bit better, is kind of the thought I'm usually left with. So on some of it, the younger players, I give a bit of a pass on that. And early season, I understand. But some of those older players, like, that's the thing. Like, man, like, why is this still happening? But again, that's obviously stuff that I'm going to be thinking about that I can't really weigh in, because I'm not there for those practices. But that's definitely where my mind goes on that sort of the question.
Yeah. I
think this is a good time to interject what we posted on our social media yesterday, which I knew we were going to get some pushback on. But I am so curious as to what would happen if we stopped hitting volleys at goalkeepers. What would happen? Would they be more inclined to be in a better position more often, right? Because if, let's just say I was on an angle, if I stood there with a ball in my hands and volley, there's no nuance to that. You're setting based on my body, right? But like in a game, if the ball's on my left foot or ball's on my right foot, you would set different, and your body shape might your body shape might be different, right? And my ability off of the ground, I can bend it. I can bend it around you. I can add deception. I can add disguise. I can off balance you with what I'm doing. But from a volley, you can't do that.
Right. So, but even to the point of how close the ball is to your foot, the touch you take off the ball to strike it off the ground,
the timing,
your body shape and everything. And that's not seen in a volley.
Correct. And I think that if you would ask a lot of coaches, what are the fundamentals of goalkeeping? A lot of them would say catching, diving, right? But if I have a new goalkeeper who's never been a goalkeeper before, let's just say first year, not even day one, first year, they're typically younger, right? Maybe 10 or 11, and they have small little hands. The first thing I'm doing is not catching. The first thing I'm doing is not hitting a volley at them. That immediately will not translate. What if we rethought the fundamentals to be game understanding and positioning, right? And you can't teach someone about positioning if you're only hitting from volleys or
No,
or a
agreed.
larger majority or the first 15 minutes. People pushed back and said, well, it's good for ball contact warm up. And I'm like, why can't you warm up doing something else that you're not going to waste 15 or 20 minutes doing something that's never going to translate? Anyway.
No. Understood. Who
Here,
pushed back? Who pushed back?
Comments. You just
I'm going under the comments.
TKI Coach Bill always gets back to the comments. Don't you worry.
That's how you know you're putting out good content. Someone's going
It's
back.
probably good that I don't get back on comments.
It's only 30 seconds long. Let me actually. Do you mind if I play it, Jill? Is that okay?
Yeah, you go for it.
Again, this is more just kickback for us. So like, you just send it over when you're ready.
Yeah. I'm curious what would happen if we stopped hitting volleys at goalkeepers. A big complaint that we get is that goalkeepers don't understand the game. Well, positioning is a big part of today's game. If we only hit volleys at players, we're actually robbing them of opportunities to read game-like cues and information and be able to adjust their decisions based on what they see. So try putting the ball on the floor. This situation is going to be a bit different than this situation, and of course, a moving ball. If you want to work on the fundamentals of the game, just start with the ball on the floor.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
No, and it's true. But even looking at like I said, going back to how are you striking the ball? What kind of stance are you taking as the kicker? Changes the way you're handling that as a goalkeeper. Also changes your set timing. Right. So it changes everything. And so game realism is so important in goalkeeper training. So I'm going on your account and I'm responding to pushbacks.
It's
No,
okay. We have a troll.
I want to know your question, Jill. You said it's leading into my question.
Come on, Jill. We're burning.
Yeah. What's your question?
All right. Well, I have two questions. Of course. I'll go with the first one that was leading was how or what signs or what elements of a goalkeeper can you accept as a young goalkeeper as learning errors, and which ones are like that's really maybe not as indicative that they could potentially matriculate to the #1 franchise goalkeeper for this club?
Wow.
What do you mean?
So, like, for example, Ange got the start last year and she played 4 games. After 4 games, they were like, we're not willing to take this risk anymore with you. And so they put Didi in. Where this year, they went with her as a young goalkeeper and they have no safety net, right? And same thing with Bay. So how do you know, essentially, how do you judge potential? How do you know if someone who is young can overcome the hurdles and obstacles of transitioning to a higher level? And when do you know it's time to call
switch it
in?
up?
Yeah.
Well, I think going back to what Bill said, we're not at practice, and I'm interested to see what they're doing in practice and in training. And are you constantly we'll take Ange as an example. Are you constantly putting Ange in game-like situations and scenarios and under pressure with a defense in front of her, with attackers coming at her? And are you trying to emulate that game realism as much as possible? And I still am stuck on like being at the game the other day, like, you know, how much is Angel City working on Ange and her distribution and being under pressure? Because when I was asked what I saw, I was like, we've got to clean this up, else everybody's gonna high press us. Period. They're gonna force that pass back to Ange, and they're gonna come at. And in this league, when they come at. If you've got a Barbara Banda running down on you, because I know that's where you're susceptible, it's gonna lead to problems, you know. And so how much is that being worked on in practice? And then if it's not translating, then a change does have to be made. And now you have no fallback. You don't, because like, you know, I'm probably going to not be allowed to be an owner after this, but I don't know if Hannah is I don't think Hannah's better at the distribution. I watched in the games in the desert and stuff, and it was, you know, she's more inclined just to boot it, you know, under pressure with no real direction. So you have no fallback. And so do you start looking? You should know by now if it's starting to, but I don't know if it's going to translate. And I think 4 games in, is Angel City going to be kind of going, all right, everybody knows that this is our weak area. It's not improving. Now we got to go get ourselves a goalkeeper that we know can handle this. Or do you say we're all bought in and let it run? This is pro.
Yeah.
So this is pro. And you have a franchise to worry about. You've got investors to worry about. You've got advertisers to worry about, and you have to perform on the field. And so changes have to be made if you don't start to translate what you need to work on and start to perfect it into the game. Like maybe I'd be a really bad GM. I'd be like, nope, it's not working. I don't know.
What I think is hard about this is you're right. It's pro, right? And these are people, this is their livelihood. This is, your jobs. You are paid or you are let go based on results and outcomes. And that's really tough. But I think for me, like when I look at a young goalkeeper or like an Angie Anderson or Jordan Silkowitz or, any young goalkeeper that's getting their chance to come into the light, I want to see, if I'm a coach, I want to see them being a decision maker. I want them to know why they did what they did, even if it was the wrong decision. Did I come out for a cross that maybe I want to do again? Okay, I want you to be able to tell me why you did and what you saw. Yeah. I want you to be courageous, to be able to play our style, even if it's not necessarily exactly what suits your strengths or weaknesses. And I want you to be adaptable. Can you make your own choices based on what's happening, based on what I'm seeing in the game? And I think these are things that we can look at and we can talk about and we can collaborate. But I also think this all comes back to coaching. Like what you're saying in your last point is like, yeah, it is pro, but it is still on the coaches to prepare them for that.
Why not? 100%.
Like, if the goalkeeper coach and then the assistants and the head coach aren't preparing their players to succeed in games, they're not giving them the tools, the resources, or the opportunities to work on these things, then it, in a way, might not be the goalkeeper's fault. Now, if their left foot is terrible and it keeps putting them under pressure and we keep getting goals scored on us because of that, I'd be like, yeah, you need to have the willingness to work on your left foot. If I've given you opportunities to do so in training and you're still not able to do that, then yeah, we have to probably look for, a more feasible option in the back line. But if this goalkeeper has these tangibles that I listed, then and they're not expressing it in a game, like it might be time to talk about like, what's our training look like, or what's their mentality? Like, do they need help with the mental piece of the game?
No, I agree with that 100%. And that's why my first thing was like, what's going on in training? Like, and we talked about that last week. Like what environment are you giving them? Because you are going to have to make those hard choices at some point. And you can't use the first, 5, 6, 7 games of the season to train somebody, as much as Silkowitz is young and coming in. But like you said, Bill, what's her training environment? Like I'm 7 games in and we're figuring out that it's, now I'm at the bottom of the table, and that's reality. And how do we dig ourselves out of that?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think it's 2 things. I think it comes down to someone's ability to handle mistakes, their relationship with mistakes and pressure, that, and their character of like who they are. And 2 is the ability of the coach. I mean, to me, like the players at this level who are starting, even if it was 1 game they started with, they are capable of learning and adapting and growing and being flexible. Mm-hmm. It's just, is the goalkeeper coach putting them in environments, but also like, do they have principles of play that's going to help guide their attention and decision making, right? Especially in certain areas where you might not feel comfortable and competent, but your team needs you to do these things, right? Right. So ultimately for me, like that's always the first thing I look at when I'm thinking about a goalkeeper, and if they can make that jump to the next level, is like, what's their character and what's their relationship with pressure? And me as my coach, I'm really aware of my strengths. I'm really aware of like where I need to be better. And so I know there's certain things that I really know I can help a goalkeeper with. So I think it's important for us as coaches to not even like dive a little deeper on the goalkeepers, but ourselves as well.
Let me throw another layer on that, because I think it ties in, and Tori actually stole a lot was in my head, so I feel smarter now that someone else said my answer. But I think we've all seen it where a team like loses faith in their goalkeeper and they start playing in a way where it's like we don't trust that person back there. And Saskia, like what you were saying of like getting to a point where it's too late. I feel like when that team doesn't trust that goalkeeper, like it's very, very difficult to come back from that. You'll give them chances, you'll give them this, but if they're not growing, if they don't want to take responsibility, if they're hiding in the game, then that team your teammates will recognize that and they're going to start losing faith in you pretty quickly. But if you're going to make a mistake here and there, but you're going to showcase something else here and execute something well there, they'll give you some grace on that. But I feel like that's the big thing that I think pragmatically, that's what a lot of goalkeeping coaches think of, like, oh, I've recognized that the team doesn't gel with that goalkeeper, so I'm going to pull that goalkeeper off.
Well, if you get to the point that your team is making the wrong decision as to let's just exacerbate it. They won't play you the ball back if they're under pressure. They'd rather turn out wide and try to beat somebody, on the flank, than play what we would say, no, play the ball back. If they feel too unsteady with that, that's when you really have to, that's when you realize that they don't trust in your keeper. And then now you have a full team breakdown because what should be an easy play and what should be the obvious thing and to break pressure and to open up the field, now your back line is making other choices based on the fact they're not sure if you can come through, then a change has to be made.
Yeah.
So.
But for me, that's like a coaching. I mean, barring a slew of crazy injuries.
I swear to God, I'm a really nice coach. I swear. I mean, ask my girls from UCLA. They love me. I'm a really nice coach.
No, I think it's fair what you're saying, but I think if you put a keeper out there who gets to that point where the team's not playing them ball, unless you just had injuries that have just like forced your hand, then that person shouldn't have been there in the first place because that's way too late. That should have been figured out.
Yeah, it was an extreme example.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of goes to my second question, Bill. Is can a goalkeeper who is already established themselves as a certain type of goalkeeper evolve in real time to the demands of a new manager?
Well, so the demands of the Can
I give you an example?
Yes.
Okay. So Jane has played for Houston her whole career. Houston has played in a very distinct way for 10 plus years, or however long she's been there, 8 years. Now Jane has a new manager who has more pieces to the pie and also wants to play more in possession. She also has the ability to be the number one for US, and Emma is wanting her to be a certain way, like play in possession.
Correct.
Can she do that? Can she evolve in real time to be more preventative and less reactionary and more capable of solving pressure and manipulating blocks in real time? Because it's not like she's a number two and she's learning this in training. She is on the fly having to adapt. Can goalkeepers do that at this level?
They better be able to. No, it's the bottom line, especially at a Campbell level or Murphy level. Anybody that will get to Casey Murphy in a minute, but anybody that is at this level where first of all, you're going away with the national, you already have to switch up coaches and trainers and everything like that. So you better be adaptable. And you never know as a professional who from year to year, halfway through the season, if things are going to change up. You don't. And so you at this level have to have more tools in your toolbox that you can be adaptable to whatever style the coach asks you to play. And they have to help train you. I'm not saying it's like, figure it out, we're playing this style now. Good luck. Obviously that comes back to training as well. But you at this level, I'm sorry, you're a professional. You have to be adaptable. And you've gone through enough different coaches and enough trainers to get to this level that you should be adaptable. That's my opinion on it.
Even if you look at it on the men's side, remember when Joe Hart got replaced and they brought in Claudio Bravo and then Claudio Bravo got replaced? Joe Hart was at the top of his game. Everyone was like, head scratcher, where is this coming from, right? And now it feels like teams are more inclined to go get goalkeepers that fit their style because it feels like two different generations of goalkeepers right now. the more shot stoppers and the more well-rounded goalkeepers. And I think that's why we're seeing an influx of internationals in our league. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. And also what drives the way Tori and I and TKI work is that we try to help, develop the most adaptable goalkeepers that we can, because we're preparing 8, 9, 10, 15-year-olds for the game in 10 years time from now, which we don't know how will be played. Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, and it goes back, and Tori said that. Are you adaptable? Like, that's what you are looking for in a goalkeeper. And yes, that is the quick fix, is to go find new coach, new manager comes in, new GM comes in, new goalkeeper coach comes in. Let's go find the goalkeeper that fits right into that mold, in a sense. I get that, but at the same time, you as a goalkeeper, where are you coming from in order to, we're bringing you over from Man City, let's say hypothetically, or you fit exactly into what we're looking for. But now halfway through the season, we're not successful, and we change everything. So are you adaptable? And goalkeepers out there, that has to be part of your game at this level. It has to be. And even look at Campbell and Murphy and Nair and everybody, even though Nair's retired, with Emma coming in. You have to be adaptable. Get over here.
Adaptable here.
Adaptable. Say hi.
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 Okay, let me finish, okay?
Okay.
All right. Go. I'll be back.
She's so cute.
Paisley. She's adaptable, trust me. But I do think, and I think that what you are going to see, unfortunately, I think what we are going to see, I don't know how adaptable Casey Murphy is right now. I don't know how much she can change her game. I saw she did come up with some big saves in the game this weekend, but also that goal off the corner kick, it was like, what are you doing? You're better than that. You should be a better, more. She's still moving as she's coming across. Number one, I think she should have gotten the corner, the service, first of all, especially being 6'1", and it being inside the 6. But then coming across the goal, it dropping at the bottom of the far post, and you're still not in position. You're out of position. You're moving, and you're just trying to get into what you think is the right position, and the ball gets passed by you. So those are things that I'm like, are you going to up your level of your game right now? That number 1 jersey is waiting for somebody. So who is going to step up is the big question. Who's going to step up? I mean, if we go on assists, obviously, Mandy did great this weekend. So we can talk about that.
I just want to throw one thing out there, and Tori, I'll let you kind of sweep up here. But this question makes me think of older keepers trying to start using a spread save, and they cannot do it, and it's like painful not only to watch, but it's painful. Their body mechanics have gotten to a point where they're so used to doing something, and now at 26, 27, 28, 30, they're trying to add that in, and it just doesn't work. So it's probably a case by case sort of thing, but I definitely think I hear what you're saying, Scott. So you have to do it, but at some point,
can you do it?
But yeah,
but it's the same. Can you do it?
Example, it's just.
Well, it's what we talked about last week, where I said, look, if you take some goalkeepers from my era and stuff like that, and turned around and said, you've got to know how to bypass lines, be in possession, everything like that. Will you, at the age of certain goalkeepers, of our more seasoned goalkeepers, are you able to do it? Are you able to adjust to the changing of the game? I don't know if I would have been. I'll throw myself under the bus. I don't know how great I would have been bypassing lines and in possession. I like to think I would have been great at it and figured it out and stuff. But that's the new style of everything. So will these goalkeepers, will Campbell and them? It's yet to be seen. It's yet to be seen.
I think this is so tough. I think it's really tough because it comes back, and I'm not trying to put everything on coaches, right? We all coach.
You should.
But it is are you
exactly
fail? Are you willing to let them make mistakes? Obviously I'm biased, right? But Kaylin Sheridan is one of the best goalkeepers in the world with her feet, and Katrine Berger, one of the best goalkeepers in the world with her feet. I've watched them duff many a passes.
Oh, they did this. They both did this weekend.
Yeah, create goals
so did Mandy
for the opponent, right? But their head coach doesn't say, scrap them, right? Because they
Right.
have success in the bag. Like there's money in the bank there. They know that that's a one-off. But when you're asking them to play a certain way, it's accepted
Well,
rules. You have to.
Well, I think it's a difference between, are we asking somebody to play a certain way that we know that they're totally not comfortable in playing with, and we have to kind of start from ground zero, or like you said, look at, okay, Mandy had the assist this weekend. Great. We know how good she is with her feet, but she also gave that ball away. She made the save afterwards, but she gave that ball away. What was in the first couple minutes of the game? You were on that call, Jill. Were you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, but you can say, oh, well, gosh, Mandy, sucks with her feet. Well, obviously she doesn't suck with her feet. We know that. And I'm pretty sure she knows she shouldn't have given the ball away, So is it a one-off and stuff? But is there a consistent, do you have goalkeepers that you're asking to do that have been in this league for a while and are consummate professionals that actually can't make that change, that adjustment? I don't know, Jill. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I think there are certain elements that really can be adaptable about goalkeepers if they have the right amount of support, to Tori's point. Like if the head coach is like, yeah, we want you to try these things. I also think it's just a lot easier for someone who is a number two who can try and be in a more forgiving environment every single day, because I think that's what Mandy actually did with her game. Like when she was coming out of college, I thought she was a great shot stopper. And then when she played with Kaylin, she learned about the in possession. She went overseas. She added some things about goal area defense. Then she was Abby Smith's backup. And so because she was Abby Smith's backup and playing at Gotham, she had to play really high off her line. And so all of these steps within her journey have been made more as a number two and less as a number one. So I just think it's a little bit curious, and because we don't want to take away what goalkeepers' strengths and skill sets are, but we certainly want them to be more robust in terms of solving a multitude of problems, right?
But I think also with Mandy, she saw how Smith's positioning got her in trouble a lot. Like, it did. I thought Smith got caught off her line and out of position a lot when she was playing. And I was like, where are you right now? And I think she took those as learning tools and said, okay, there's an in-between here. There isn't an extreme. And what can I do? What's better for my game and who I am as an athlete? I'm not Abby. I'm me. Right. So my positioning has to be where it is as well. And, obviously took that to Utah. So I think, I love the assist. I have to say, I want to say, what the hell was Bay doing? Right. Just like, somebody, a goalkeeper with that good skills with her feet, you're just giving her a free service, but whatever. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I have a lot to say about that as well, but nice ball.
I have one more point. Just another thought is going back to the mental resilience and the character and the trying and the exploring and the being brave part that like we've all talked about. That is so incredibly important, even more so at this level, because situations like we're talking about, the more nuanced things where we have to be flexible and adapt, are so hard to replicate in training, right? So like the balls in behind the back line where Barbara Brand is running at you, you can't replicate that in goalkeeper training. You literally can't. No matter what you facilitate and how good of a coach you are, you cannot facilitate that, right? So to me, it's that resilience, the character piece becomes so much more important, because a lot of what we're learning and seeing is for the first time in a game situation, like whether it's navigating traffic and 20 bodies on a corner or something like that, or Barbara Banda played in behind. So we have to be so, our relationship with mistakes has to be so well tuned to be able to not let your confidence slip, and also use it as moments to learn and make yourself better moving forward.
No, absolutely. And that's why I said there's certain things in that game, like we can nitpick from I don't know, your balance was off or something like that. But at the end of the day, if you take that Chicago game, what's Nair going to do? Getting the ball passed around her on some of them, we can, if you're a team, you can go back and say, okay, where was the disconnect? The breakdown was in the defense. Why wasn't this person marked up? Who was supposed to be on weak side? Those are all bigger pictures, but take it. Barbara Bannon running at you full speed, 1v1, I mean, it's like one of the greatest things about playing for the U.S. team was in practice, you actually saw Mia Hamm running at you 1v1, and you could, who else was going to replicate that? And Anson, back in the day, Anson used to say, well, training is like, it's the best there is in the world. Well, yeah, because here I'm dealing with Michelle Akers blowing me into the back of the net, so those things are replicated depending on where you are. But at the end of the day, you're going to see young players struggle to figure that out as well. We'll see.
All right, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pin this combo here so I can trick both Tori and Jill to come back next week. So I've still got my question. I'm gonna hold it now. I will say there was a moment. You were, unless I'm misremembering, you were calling the Utah game, right, Jill?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it was. I forget what it was, but there was a moment. I think it was the goal.
The goal.
Where,
which one? The banger?
Like assist, where she. Like the goal happens and it kind of all just happens kind of quickly, and then the replay happens. And
do you have it with Jill on camera? I totally DM'd her.
It just went really quiet for a moment, and like the replay's happening. In my head, I was thinking, okay, either her mic's cut out or she's like gawking over the pass, and because it was like a slow motion replay. And there was like maybe 5 or 7 seconds of just like dead air. And I was like, either she's having like a good moment where she's just like
awesome.
forgetting she's a commentator and just enjoying the play, or like something's gone wrong technology wise. Like I was kind of laughing to myself. I don't know what's happening here, but it's like, this is funny that I think this. But I
love that the NWSL put it up too.
Wait, hold on. Let me give you insight. So as a color analyst, when the goal happens, you're not supposed to come in immediately. You're not, because you want everyone to like experience the vibes and the energy and their celebrations, and they pan to the crowd. So like you're supposed to be silent for a few seconds. I probably extended that silence for a little too long because I was doing what you might show people now, which I'm very embarrassed about, my face turning red.
No, it was awesome, but she's not on. You're supposed to take a hard pause because you want them to hear the crowd noise and all that stuff. But this was a pause. This is great. I love that you're ending it on this.
Yeah, that was good. Honestly, just made me think like it made me actually look at the play a bit more, because I was like, I think that's what she's doing. It was like, there's a reason why we're waiting on something, and they show the replay. I was like, that was a really good ball. So I probably would have like kind of tuned out a little bit, but it was all by design. You did it on purpose. It was good. No, my question for next week will be related to Mandy. So I'll pin it there. So hopefully we can get both Tori and Jill back in. But no, thank y'all for everything. This is good. In my head, I was trying to think, okay, how can we do 4 people here and have questions and topics here?
I will come back next week with all positive comments.
Good.
You, Saskia.
Oh, man. Oh. All right, I'm out. All right, Tori, gloves off. Nice one. Nice hit.
You guys know the more you invite Tori back, the more you're really going to get to know Tori.
Yeah,
I love it.
Just so you know, the video of Jill celebrating, I turn it into a GIF, and I send it to people via text message now, like in our TKI group chat.
Put it in our chat, please.
All right. Give me a second. Let me cook.
Yeah, wonderful.
Tori. Oh, gosh.
Love it. All right, listen, you guys. I'm gonna bounce. Say hi to that kid over there. This was awesome.
Very, very good. Thank y'all.
Awesome.
Of course. Thanks for having us. See you guys.